Right, without further ado, we will kick off. Everyone hear me okay? Excellent. Right, my name's Pete. I am from Meetoo, the guys with the big glowing stand over there. And I'm going to be talking about crowd power, unleashing the power of your employees. And at the end of that, I'll be revealing the 5 killer questions to ask your team at your next employee comms meeting. And if it couldn't get any better, I'm also going to tell you why they work so well. So hopefully you're as excited as I am, and we will kick off. Most of you logged in already, which is great, but if you've just arrived, you could log into Meetoo by going to web.meetoo.com and then type in the meeting ID. That would be fantastic, and you can contribute to live polls that are coming up in a second. Okay, got a few people saying hello as well on the app, which is great. So without further ado, we'll get started. So this is our brief agenda for this short presentation, which is, first of all, why are we bothering at all? Second, why this stuff's so powerful? Thirdly, what's stopping people? And then, if you've lasted all the way through there, we will reveal those 5 killer questions. So let's get started. So for those logged into the app, if I can ask you a question first of all, how regularly does your organisation hold an internal comms, town hall, all hands, whatever you want to call it, an internal comms meeting? Do you hold one never? Once a month? Every 2 months? Every quarter? Every 6 months? Or are they held annually? And I can see those responses coming in, which is great. I'll give you a couple more seconds. And let's close it off there and have a look at the results. So, okay, 18% never. That's I'm genuinely surprised by that. I thought at the very least people would hold really awful employee comms meetings, but they would hold one. But some don't hold them at all. Once a month, fairly normal. Every quarter, yeah, every 6 months. We hold them in our organisation every 2 months. But having said that, we vary them depending on whether we're going through change or not and what the employees need. Okay, thanks for that. Really helpful. Well, hopefully by the end of this, anyone that's put never will be pushing to at least have these reasonably regularly. So, first of all, what are we talking about here? Why do we hold internal communications meetings? Why is internal communications important? Well, because it's all about employee engagement. And employee engagement is vital. Without employee engagement, without engaged employees, usually employees look a little bit like this, or worse still, they look a bit like this. And that's not a good place to be. Why do we want to avoid that? Well, effective communications create engaged employees, which create loyal customers, who in turn create bigger profits. Engaged employees are simply good for business. That's why it's top of the agenda for so many organisations that we work with. That's why you hear about it all the time. It's not just a nice to have. It is important to look after people well, but it actually is really, really good for your business. If you want a bit of further evidence, this is from the Institute of Internal Communications. They talk about a solid body of research illustrating the business benefits that typically result from better levels of employee engagement, including higher productivity and quality, lower absenteeism, and lower staff turnover. This cartoon describes it fairly well, which is engaging employees creates a knock-on effect. Engaged employees creates a knock-on effect throughout an organisation with many touch points, better serviced, increased sales, and so on and so forth. It's really important to get this right. So, why aren't people getting it right? Well, traditionally, employee comms meetings were a one-way presentation. They often were held annually. It would be someone talking to the masses, and there's no chance for a two-way conversation. For anything to be meaningful, people need to contribute. It needs to be a two-way conversation. It's what we're used to in our daily lives and everything we do now. We don't just get served information and suck it up. We get served information and we contribute to it and we engage in conversation. So it's really important within an organisation too. So it's pretty obvious, isn't it? So why are we standing here talking about it? It's obvious you need to do that. So what's stopping people? Well, there's a bunch of things in place that stop people having good internal comms in their organisations. First of all, management are scared. Leadership can be scared. They're scared if they ask people for their opinions, it's going to open the floodgates and they're not going to be able to manage it, or they're not going to know what to do with it, or they're going to uncover problems they don't want to deal with, And then you can actually end up with even further disengaged employees. So there's a risk there, there's an inherent risk. The other reason is they're doing it, but they're doing it really badly. So they think they're engaging with employees, they're ticking the boxes for what engaged employees need and want, but actually they're doing a bad job. Or they just don't know how to. The leadership team's small, there's a huge amount of employees. How do you engage with that level of employees? On the other side, and we hear this from organisations, when you do offer employees the chance to contribute, the chance to feedback, so you put all this in place for them, they don't do it. And that can frustrate leadership as well. Why don't they do it? Well, we did some research last year, some independent research, and on how people feel about employee comms and how they feel about meetings in their organisations, and it revealed some really interesting data. Is one of those pieces of data. 51% of people said they don't speak freely in business meetings for fear of repercussions. 48% of people said they don't speak up in meetings for fear of looking foolish or having their opinion held against them. And I think this is something hopefully people out there can relate to. I think we can all relate to. Doesn't matter where you are in an organisation, this is a common theme. But at the same time, 44% of people felt that being able to voice your thoughts openly is crucial for successful meetings. So you can see there's a difficult balance there. So, how do you get over this problem? How do you create that two-way conversation that really works? Well, you need to create a culture and a platform for honest, uninhibited feedback. And then you need to ask them the right questions, which I'll come to at the end. So the only problem is, if you create that honest, open environment, let everyone speak, let everyone say what they think, let thousands of people potentially say what they think, aren't you just going to open the floodgates for a bunch of terrible ideas, initiatives, things that you don't want to deal with, crazy ideas that people don't get what you're thinking at leadership level? Isn't it going to cause more problems than it is going to help things, like that arrow slide at the start? Well, the answer to that is no. This stuff really works. It's about managing it. It's about understanding that that's a risk. But this stuff really works. And a good example of this really working is described in this book. And I don't know if anyone's seen this book before. It's by James Surowiecki, called The Wisdom of Crowds. And what he talks about in this book is how wise a crowd can be, how helpful a crowd can be in business or in any environment when they're given the right environment to feedback in an honest, uninhibited way. And a really good example of this that most people can relate to is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Now, nearly everyone's seen this in this country and around the world. And, you know, there's three lifelines you can call upon. When you don't know the answer, you've got three lifelines. One of those lifelines is 50-50. So it kind of ups your odds a bit, but it's not really helping you get to a sensible answer. The other one is phone a friend. So you get to phone an expert. And that can be really helpful if they're an expert in that subject. But even then, if we've all watched the programme, you see the expert, who probably knows more than anyone else in the room, they're still nervous about feeding that back because they're worried about the repercussions, they're worried about the audience watching them, and so on and so forth. The most reliable way of getting to the answer, the one people save to last in this game show, is the ask the audience. And 99.9% of the time on this programme, the audience get it right, or the majority of the audience get it right. And that's not just because of the number of people there, it's because of the environment they're able to contribute their feedback. So I'm just going to get you to have a go at this now, and then we'll talk about the dynamics behind our answer. So I'm just going to ask you a question. Which line is the same height as the line on the left? So we've got line A, B, and C there. Which line in the first picture is represented? So if you can put in A, B, or C, that would be great. Hopefully this will work. Right, I think that's enough answers. I'll close that one off. Okay, 100% of you. That worked brilliantly, excellent. 100% of you thought C, and that is absolutely the right answer. So there's probably a few of you thinking, is this an optical illusion? Am I trying to catch you out? All those things. But actually, you cast all those doubts aside. You went with your best answer, which is it's C, and you were all absolutely right. The reason I asked this question is there was an experiment done called the ASH experiment, which is spelled ASCH, if anyone wants to look it up. And what they were doing was looking at the effect of others on people's decision making and the effect of what they call groupthink. Now, what they found was exactly what we found here. If you ask everyone in an honest, uninhibited way, in an anonymous way, what the answer is, nearly always people got the right answer, and certainly the majority got the right answer. However, what they did then was introduced actors and asked people to give their answers by a show of hands. And when an actor came in quickly with the wrong answer, they rapidly saw that move amongst the audience, and people started to change their answers. They doubted themselves, they didn't want to look stupid, and they all submitted to groupthink. And that's exactly what happens if you hold an employee comms meeting where you ask people for their honest, uninhibited feedback and then get them to say, do you all understand the strategy? Nod your heads if you do. You're going to see a lot of nodding heads, but it means nothing. Ask people to raise their hands. We all look around first before we raise our hands. There's the odd super confident one doesn't, puts their hand up first. They're the one that tends to lead the pack. It doesn't mean they're right. So a really interesting experiment in the psychology of these environments. So what is an effective environment to avoid groupthink, to avoid these pitfalls, and to give leadership the control they need? Well, this is slightly the shameless plug bit here. You need to have a platform that provides three things. We're using Meetoo today. I'm not saying Meetoo is the only solution for this, it certainly isn't. But for an employee comms meeting, that's what we've designed. We've designed a solution that overcomes these physical barriers and mental barriers. So first of all, you need to provide anonymity. You need to be working in the moment. People need to see an instant result from what they're feeding back. They need to see their opinion counts. They need to see it forcing the agenda of the meeting and steering the agenda of the meeting. And finally, it needs to offer a level of control. I mean, we've all seen live events, especially a few years back, people using Twitter to take questions, put them live onto screen. There's no moderation there. To the wrong audience, that's really, really dangerous. It can end up with people trolling and so on and so forth. It's not it doesn't have the control you need. So you need to have moderation options. You need to have the ability to take control. So once you've got those things, you can have an effective environment. So another question for you. For those that do hold internal comms meetings, which of those things do you currently have in place in those meetings? And you can answer more than one here and click send at the end. So do you provide anonymity? Do you provide some way of giving feedback and working in the moment? Or are you provided? Do you provide control for organisers and presenters? Or do you not have a solution that provides any of these? Do you just get people to, raise their hands or nothing at all? Okay. Great stuff. I'm going to close that one off now. Okay. Interesting. Really interesting that the least is anonymity, and amazing that there's 40% that don't provide any of these. So that's great opportunity if you're in charge of this, or something that's missing from your organisation if you're an employee and would like this. And I'd be, speaking to my bosses and saying this is why we're not getting the feedback. Really key one there is anonymity. And it is actually really hard to provide anonymity. Nearly everything we use in an office and work environment has some kind of login. Whether you're using Facebook in the workplace, Slack, Microsoft Teams, they all require you to log in, and therefore anything you say can be traced back to you. So that's one of the key things we provide with Meetoo, is that it's genuinely anonymous. You log in with a different device, you don't put your name in unless it's set up that way, and it's truly anonymous. So you can feel confident that that is the case. Right, so we've talked about the problems, we've talked about creating an effective environment and how you can do that. So what are the 5 killer questions once you've created that environment that you should ask your employees? Well, there are actually 5 killer question types, and I'm going to go through some examples of them. But this is the formula we work to and lots of our clients work to. So we ask these 5 killer question types, and it's a great way of taking you through the process of a meeting to get the right information and insight you need from your employees. So first of all, the let it all out question. Now this is where anonymity is key. Ask your employees to set the agenda for the meeting. And this can work on any scale. The type of question I'm talking about here is, what's working well within the company? Give them a chance to be positive. What's not working well within the company? Give them a chance to feedback the negative stuff, tell them it's okay, and tell them you know it's not perfect here. What are the greatest organisational challenges you see? You've got smart people in your business, whatever level they're at, they can give you insights. What questions or issues do you want us to face in the address in the meeting? Let them set the agenda for the meeting. This is their meeting, make it meaningful. In terms of management of this works with a very small audience, which is where anonymity is key, because otherwise you all know who's saying things. We've also done this with an audience of like 200,000 employees. How does that work? Well, that's where the control and management comes in. You can't ask 200,000 people to contribute in the first 5 minutes of a meeting because you won't be able to manage it all. So for that example, they sent out a global email and everyone contributed anonymously using Meetoo in the days leading up to the meeting, and then they were filtered down to set the agenda for the actual meeting. So that's question one. Question two, the do they understand question. So you've likely given a presentation, shared some information. There's no point going any further forward unless people get what you're saying. And again, you can present some complicated charts on screen, go, everyone understand that? Everyone know what the acronyms are for that? Everyone will nod along with you, and you move on with your presentation. Most of them, not most of them, some of them won't have got it, most of them might not have got it, we don't know. The point is, do they understand? This is a great way of checking if they understand. Don't say, do you understand? Ask them a specific question about the subject matter. How far off target are we currently this year? Were they listening? What are the 3 headline features included in the product? How clear are you on the strategy? If there's an issue at this point, you can go back and address it. You can go back and explain it better. If you can't explain it better in the meeting, you can do something after the meeting to explain it better. The point is, you do it then, not at the end of the quarter or financial year, when you wonder why you didn't hit your targets, and people say, well, yeah, I didn't really understand it in the first place. Nip it in the bud early. The next question is the on-the-bus question. Now, for anyone that hasn't seen the cheesy presentations of rousing up the troops and asking them if they're on the bus, this is what I'm referring to. This is the new strategy, the new CEO coming in. Do you all believe? Are you with me? Because this bus is leaving the stop, and if you're not on it, you're not with us. If you are on it, we're going to go places. Again, you ask an audience that, they'll all say yes they are, they'll all nod their heads, but are they? This is vital. So ask them, how confident are you that this strategy can be successful? How comfortable are you with where we're heading? How should we move forward? These are the questions to ask them. You need honest answers to these, because if they're not on board, they're not going to perform. It's as simple as that. We're human beings. We need to be on board. Next question, the was it worth it question. Can be a brutal one. If it's your first employee comms meeting where you've asked for feedback, you might do a really bad job of it. But you know what? Ask them if you did a good job. You probably did better than you think. Ask them for the feedback. Actually, people can be really constructive and also really kind. We see this on the Q&A board sometimes. You ask for the feedback, people give it, and actually other people within the audience, within their colleagues, answer for the speakers, saying, no, you know what? I thought that really was helpful. Because they're anonymous, they actually can work for you and defend you and help you. Make sure you prove value in the meeting. So the was it worth it question, really key. How would you rate this meeting? Nice and simple. Was this session a good use of your time? You're busy people, we've dragged you into a meeting room or onto a webinar to watch us talk for an hour. Was it good use of your time? What were the 2 most interesting parts of the meeting? Pick those, run them again next time. It's not a one meeting wonder this, it's a process to work through. Really important question. And then finally, the what's next question. Meetings are about outcomes. That includes 200,000 person employee comms meetings. They're about outcomes. It's about what you're going to do as a leadership team or as a manager or presenter, and it's also about what the audience are going to do. So why not ask people what they're going to do, or even make them make some commitments? What would you like to learn or hear about in the next meeting? Start thinking about the future. Start asking people what they want to hear about. How often should we hold these meetings? Really simple question, but there's nothing worse than having your time wasted with boring meetings that aren't adding value to you doing your role. We ask this question at the end of every meeting we have, and it's really interesting. When we went through a lot of change last year, when we went through change, 90% of people said, can we hold them every month? So we held them every month. As things settled out and everyone just wants to get on with their jobs, they know what they're doing, they know what the strategy is, people are now voting in our business for quarterly or every couple of months. We're giving people what they want, and for those that did want them monthly, they can see that actually the majority want them quarterly, so it's the right thing for the business and for people's time. Name one thing that you'll do differently as a result of this meeting. So that's the end of my 5 questions. In conclusion, we talked about why bother. Well, because engaged employees make a successful business, and that's what we want. Why it's so powerful? Because this stuff is proven many, many times over. And if it's to be proven by a game show, fair enough. But it's proven many times over. There's books written about it. It's not new. We're not making it up. Audience response technology has been around for 25 years. It was just a lot more expensive before. Now you can get an app online and do it for virtually nothing. What's stopping people? Don't get annoyed with people for not contributing. What's stopping them is human nature. It's what they've seen happen to people. They've seen the reactions to people's questions. They see how people react. So give them the right environment, give them the opportunity to feedback, tell them they're valued, tell them you'll look after them in terms of their data and what they contribute, and then ask them the right questions. I've actually written I think an ebook would be an exaggeration, but a presentation that I've PDF'd, which we can share with you as well. So if you want to leave your email address in here, you're more than welcome to. You can do that in the survey at the end, so it's private. And we'll happily send that out to you if you want some further information and the sort of background behind the ASH experiment and so on and so forth. But I hope that was useful. And if I've got any questions, I can see them coming through here. And I've got a little bit of time, so I will go to those now. If anyone wants to shout out a question, you're more than welcome as well. How do you keep the conversation going after an internal meeting? Many people have questions on reflecting on the meeting topics. Yeah, great question. What we tend to do is, one of the key things we found in feedback is people hate these meetings running over. The Q&A is the most important part, but having said that, don't let it run over. So we answer the most important questions first, and then usually we stay online on Meetoo and answer the other questions within Meetoo, so we can just put host answers in there. So the conversation can go on that way for people that want to stay on, or we can take those questions away, address them at the next town hall. We've got other clients that use their intranets more than probably we do, so they put all the questions on the intranet and answer those questions and let people know they're there. So a bunch of ways you can do it, but our favourite is just to leave the meeting open for those that want to stay and see those answered. Will you share the slides? Yes, absolutely. We have town halls, but they are just presentations and updates. How can employees make them 2 ways? We've seen this a lot, so yeah, ask your employers to use, and again, shameless plug, but ask them to use something like Meetoo. Say, can we try this? You can get a free trial with us. We'd be delighted to give it to you for the first time you use it. And don't care how many employees you got, we can sort you out with that. But give it a try. But what we do is our whole infrastructure is based around customer success. So if you've got a leader that's worried about it, if you're worried about it, we can do a webinar with you, talk through your meeting agenda, talk through the best way to do it, then do a flipped webinar where you present it back to us and we can give you some tips and hints and just give it a shot. And if it works for your business, great. You'll probably end up continuing to work with us, and if not, you try another method. But yeah, it's very easy to get started. We'd like to use an app, but we don't know where to get started. Great question, meetoo.com. Sign up for a free account, takes a couple of minutes, and yep, it's free to use to start with. And that's it for my questions, I think. Yeah, any other questions from anyone? No? Okay, well, before you go, of course, I need to know if it was worth it. Could you just answer this question for me? How would you rate this presentation? And once you've put an answer into that, if you could then, on the chat board, leave any final questions or comments you like on there. There's no moderation on there, I can take it. And all feedback is extremely helpful. Great, so I've got the responses in there. I'll just close that off, and there we go. No need to embarrass anyone, is there? But I'm sure they're very positive. Thank you very much. And if they're not, like I say, I will improve my next presentation. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that was helpful, and enjoy the rest of Event Tech.